Will Smith is a Dodger for life, and the Dodgers got a really great deal out of it. Let's talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day, and that can be made easier by subscribing and be notified when episodes are ready for you. If this is your first time listening, watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, usually joined by co-host Jeff Snyder, although Jeff is on his way or close to LA by now, coming home to his hometown for opening day for the Dodgers. So it'll just be me today, and lo and behold, the Dodgers gave us something to talk about, and I didn't have to, worry about, what are we gonna get into today with one day before opening day and no game to talk about. But the Dodgers, they done did it. They done did it. They gave us something to talk about, and Will Smith is a Dodger for life. There's a slight potential that he could not be or could play beyond the contract that he just signed, but I don't see it happening. We got news on Wednesday morning-ish, maybe afternoon-ish, I don't really remember, but that Will Smith was close to an extension with the Dodgers, and then the news broke right after that Will Smith had agreed to that extension with the Dodgers, and that extension is 10 years, $140 million. And yeah, when initial thoughts was, Will Smith first seeing the extension part, like, oh, great, like, the Dodgers are going to lock up Will Smith, and I was thinking, 5-6 years, and Jeff and I had talked about this topic before, and we both kind of said, JT Realmuto got 5 and 115. We said, maybe Will Smith would get 5 years, about 25 mil a year, potentially, 125, maybe even 150, depending, how far they go up, whatever the case was. But then you see the figures, and it's 10 years, 140 million. You're like, wow, that's beautiful, because that's only 14 mil against the luxury tax. And then we find out that there's deferrals, about 50 million total in deferrals. That knocked that luxury tax number down to 12.2 million, which is, just a little bit better than 14 million. And all is well. And I really think that this was the right thing to do. The Dodgers are, we've seen, depending on how old you are, we've seen a very, very, very good offensive catcher not stick around, get traded, and end up becoming a Hall of Famer with the hat of another team. And I wasn't really trying to see that happen again. So Will Smith, if he does end up being a Hall of Famer, it'll be with a Dodger cap on. If not, he'll still be a really, really good Dodger and a Dodger for life at this point. And he talked about it a little bit in a really quick press conference and kind of what he thought about it. And he said, quote, "I loved being here since I got drafted in 2016. I don't think I would be the player I am without being here. So for me to probably finish my career at Dodger means a lot. I couldn't be happier and more excited moving forward. There's no better organization that's more committed to winning a World Series, and that's most important to me when it comes to baseball. I'm looking forward to these next 10 years. And yeah, obviously all of that sounds great. And this is something we've kind of talked about of, man, how come the Dodgers never get these extensions? We compare them to the Braves, and the Braves locked up a lot of their young players early and for relatively cheap. Ronald Acuna is probably the best bargain in baseball at this point. And he's not making too much. And the Dodgers have done extensions or signed contracts, but never really getting the a deal, you would say, other than small time savings with like Max Muncy and Chris Taylor, maybe a little bit, and guys like that, but nothing to the extent of locking down a player the Dodgers drafted and keeping him around longer than that initial time that he has. We saw Jock Peterson leave. We saw Cody Bellinger leave. We saw Corey Seager leave. We've seen a lot of this young talent leave for free agency, not end up sticking around, and we got one that is going to stick around. And it's one of those where you see the 10 years and you're like, oh man, is that a bad deal? But when you see the 140 mil, that makes up for it. I would imagine the Dodgers believe that Will Smith will be still a valuable catcher for at least 5-6 years. And then the last 4 years you add on and you help yourself with that luxury tax number. And if Will Smith can still hit around that age, there's, multiple positions he can play. Well, first base for sure. Third base, he's played before, and then by that time, him and Ohtani are going to be around there for the same amount of time. So there won't really be room for DH unless something happens down the line where Ohtani becomes a position player, not a pitcher, but that's way down the line for that. But yeah, for the Dodgers, that makes sense. They locked down their catcher. I saw a few people kind of mention the fact of, what does that mean for guys like Dalton Rushing and Diego Cartaya and Tyrone Alonso? And, it doesn't really mean too much at this point. We don't know what those guys are going to be. We don't know, a couple years ago, Diego Cartaya was untouchable and the next coming at catcher. And we were just debating whether the Dodgers should, maybe, I don't know, we debated this, but, there was talk of, Will Smith could become expendable because of Cartaya. And then, one bad year and Cartaya is out of the top 100 prospects in pretty much every publication. I don't think there's any that still have him up there. So it doesn't mean much for those guys. They could potentially, come up and become a backup catcher. They could potentially come up and help the Dodgers if Will Smith ever gets hurt. They could end up being traded. Realistically, all those guys probably can't stick around in the Dodgers organization. So at least, one or two may be traded down the line. But until they really get a chance to prove themselves in the majors or get the Dodgers a major league piece at a different position, we don't really know what those guys. And with Will Smith, you know what you're getting. There's maybe some concern with the concussions that he had last year and then, missing some time because of that. But every catcher is probably going to deal with that at some point. And, you just got to hope that it doesn't become a recurring issue. But regardless, it's a time of excitement. The Dodgers have Will Smith for 10 years and at a very, very cheap rate. This is one of those where, the offseason couldn't have got better, you thought, and then this happens. Now the Dodgers have, I'll get into this a little bit in the next segment, but the Dodgers have the first four in their lineup locked down for the next 4 seasons. They have, a lot to add to that as the time goes on, or guys retain or guys get better, whatever the case is. But you think about this deal and you think about, the organization the Dodgers have built. We like I said, Chris Taylor, Max Muncy, even Kike Hernandez, who wanted to come back to the Dodgers after, coming back last season via trade. Like, these guys all mention, you can claim Kershaw coming back at probably reduced prices for the Dodgers, and Evan Phillips and different guys, Ryan Brazier, we've heard all these guys. And it's the Dodgers, the commitment to winning. And even signing Ohtani and Yamamoto this offseason, and Tyler Glass, like anybody that's signed recently, they all kind of allude to the part of winning and being able to compete for a championship and all that type of stuff. And this just reinforces that. And this is why the Dodgers get to continue to compete for championships and have been able to sustain this winner for a decade. And now, looking at sustaining this winner for the next half decade at the very least, because they make smart deals. They get guys to come here. They, put money into resources beyond just on the field players, off the field development, all that type of stuff. And it hasn't quite worked out for some of these other homegrown players in terms of getting a hometown discount. But it worked for Will Smith. He probably didn't want to have to face not being a Dodger, and he probably didn't want to have to face, the uncertainty that this last year maybe created in free agency. I'm sure there's some players that maybe got scared off by this last free agency market, because other than the Dodgers handing out big money, there wasn't a lot of big money or long-term contracts handed out. And, now the Dodgers have another one to add to their belt. So it's all good in Dodgerland. And like I mentioned, the Dodgers have that that top four in their lineup locked down for a little bit. They got the rotation locked down for a little bit. The Dodgers are in a good spot to continue to sustain this winner, and we're going to talk about that next. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the app you want to use when you're looking for tickets, not just for baseball, but also for other high-profile events or concerts and theater tickets and things of that nature. But Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace for MLB, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So if you're somebody that is waiting out for those opening day tickets to drop, download the Gametime app, and they got killer last minute deals, and they even have the Gametime guarantee, which means that your purchase is covered, and they will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets cheaper in the same section and row as you. They got flash deals that come up ahead of the game or an event. They got zone deals, which let you choose a section, and they got random deals there. There's a lot of things. So go right now to check out the Gametime app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime, and for a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Gametime app with the code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH, FIRSTPITCH, for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us where you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And remember that the Locked On Podcast Network has some 24/7 streaming channels. And if you're tired of watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day because you have to turn down the volume because of all the shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. It streams 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's get into this next part. And like I said, the Dodgers have Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Will Smith all locked up for at least the next 4 years. They have 3 of those 4 locked up for at least the next 10 years. And that's a pretty good start to any team when you have those 3 and 4 guys locked up for that many years. So it's one of those we've talked about, the Braves. I mentioned the Braves in the first segment, and I'll mention them again here because we've had questions and we've talked about, and we discussed their strategy of locking down their young talent. And they have Michael Harris and Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies and Spencer Strider and some of those guys that are all signed to longer term deals or beyond their arbitration years and everything else. And for the Dodgers, they have that now to a certain extent, but it's just not with guys that they drafted other than Will Smith. But they have Mookie Betts for 11 more years. They have Shohei Ohtani for 10 years. They have Will Smith for 10 years. They have Freddie Freeman for 4 years. They have Tyler Glasnow for 5 more or 4 more years after this one. They have Yoshinobu Yamamoto for 12 years total. They have Bobby Miller, won't reach arbitration for another 2 years. Won't be eligible to be a free agent for another 5 seasons. So that's 4/5 of your rotation if you count Ohtani in the rotation, and that's your top 4 hitters on offense if you count that. And that's a way to make sure that you're going to be able to win for the next half decade at the very least. Because, regardless of anything else, having those guys in your rotation, in your starting lineup, essentially can get you to a 500 record, by them just playing to their normal potential, nothing beyond, what we've already seen them do and establish themselves here in the major leagues. And as we've seen, the Dodgers are good at tacking onto that. Max Muncy was a minor league deal find, and he ends up, sticking around, and he's going to be in the top guys of Dodger home runs by the end of his career. And he signed on for 2 more years. So the Dodgers got him. Chris Taylor was another small time deal that became fruitful, and he stuck around, and he's been good for the Dodgers. And then you got the guys like, Teoscar Hernandez, Jason Hayward, guys that of different variations that come to the Dodgers, veterans, some coming off down years. Teoscar's down year wasn't quite what Jason Hayward's down years were, but, down years nonetheless. Hayward gets a minor league deal, ends up being really good for the Dodgers last year. Teoscar, obviously not a minor league deal, but ends up taking the money, taking a little bit of deferrals as well to help with that luxury tax number. And the Dodgers tack on that way. You have Gavin Lux, who's, a remnant of, and James Outman, who are both from the Dodgers system that came up and, are supposed to play everyday roles on this team right now. And then you have guys that, waiting in the wings. Guys are always waiting in the wings. We talked about all the catchers that are down there, but there's other guys, Andy Pajes, and, maybe now Trey Sweeney now, who they got in this offseason. And then further down the line, guys they just got Kendall George and Josue De Paula and all those guys. So the Dodgers have been able to build, it's been a different way of building this, juggernaut of a franchise over the last decade. It started with getting, more high priced talent while the young talent developed. And then that young talent developed and that sustained, that 4 or 5 year run where the Dodgers were in the playoffs, advancing to the NLCS, making it to the World Series, should have won that one World Series, did win a World Series. And then those guys kind of moved on, but the Dodgers supplemented them with elite talent, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, now Shohei Ohtani, while some of this other talent continued to build. James Outman, Gavin Lux, Will Smith stuck around, and now he's sticking around for a while. And then, in the pitching staff, you had, Dustin May hasn't quite worked out yet, but the talent is there. You got Bobby Miller now, who did work out for them last year. You got Sheehan, you got Stone, and then you had so much talent that was kind of bubbling at the top that you didn't have room for them, and you go and trade Michael Busch, and you get a couple guys that furthers that timeline. If those guys they got from the Cubs, they're young. If they end up getting better in the next few years, then they'll be that supplement in the next 5 years of Dodger talent. And who they traded for. Anyone else that they've traded for the last few years that's kind of been on the younger side. And then they make deals like the Matt Beatty for River Ryan trade, and River Ryan's now a top prospect. So the wheels have been churning for the Dodgers, and it's kind of shifted how they've, built the team. For a while there, it was homegrown, built with a little bit of additions here and there. Clayton Kershaw still considered homegrown, obviously. And then it kind of became, okay, a little bit half homegrown, some elite talent and some other talent helping out. And now it's a little, it's some acquired elite talent or signed elite talent, and the homegrown's kind of resetting, and we're going to see probably the next few years we're going to see if the Dodgers developmental system can keep churning out these guys with some of this younger talent and some of these pitchers, if they end up becoming what they're projected to be in terms of helping out a major league club and for cheap. If the Dodgers can get to a point where the first four in the lineup and that the first three in that rotation end up being the big money guys, and everyone else is making either below average, not below market deals. I don't want to advocate for that in terms of the players, but deals that make sense for them, or hometown discounts if they really want to give that, or on their first 6 years where it's making cheap money the first 3 years, arbitration the next 3 years. Still a little bit of a bargain compared to the open market for the most part. So we've said this a lot of times, and we're going to continue to say that, but it's a great time to be a Dodger fan. And I was talking at the Angel game the other day and kind of thinking about man, if I was an Angel fan, like that would suck. And we my dad had messaged one of the guys that we know that's Angel fan, and he said, oh, if that's a team Artie Moreno owns, I don't root for that team right now. And you just think about, man, like, damn, that sucks. And people, us Dodger fans think, damn, it sucks to be a Dodger fan because we've seen them make the playoffs, 9 of the last 11 or 10, we've seen them make the playoffs for 11 years, only have the one World Series to show for it. One World Series was stolen from us, but the alternative is not much better, and on the football side, I know it. I'm a Raider fan, and, the Raiders have had 2 winning seasons since I was 10 years old, and I'm 33 now. So it's not fun to not be good. It's fun to be good. Yes, it sucks when it comes down to it in October and you don't win it all and you lose in sometimes heartbreaking fashion or you lose in upset fashion. But I'm not going to take the alternative of being a bad team and not making the playoffs or fighting for a wild card spot or whatever else the case is. I'm going to take what they have now. And now that we know that it's going to be around for at least a few more years as these guys continue to wear that Dodger blue, it's going to be fun. So thank you to the Dodgers and Guggenheim and Andrew Friedman and everyone else that's been a part of it, because there's no better time to be a Dodger fan than right now. And I hope we all remember that as the season gets started and we get frustrated over the next 6-7 months. So it is opening day this morning. If you're listening in the morning, if you're not listening in the morning, opening day might be going on right now or already passed. But what does opening day mean to me? And I'll kind of talk about what that is and why I bring it up. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is here for you to try and make some money. You can, it's the number one fantasy sports app, and what you do is you pick more or less for players in multiple sports. And if you make, all you need to do is make 2 picks in order to have an entry. You can make up to 6 picks in an entry. You can have 4 picks to 100 times your money depending on what you pick. And it's as easy as picking more or less. And right now, let's just go to PrizePicks and see what they got for the Dodgers on this opening day. And you look at Freddie Freeman, they have 1.5 total bases, more or less, you pick. Freddie Freeman, 0.5 runs, more or less, you pick. Hitter strikeouts, 0.5, more or less. Max Muncy, will he hit a home run? They have a demon on there right now, which means that you get extra bonus money if you do pick that one for him to hit a home run, and it does happen. They have Mookie Betts, 0.5 strikeouts, more or less. They have Ohtani, 1.5 total bases, 2.5 hits, runs, plus RBIs. They got the demon on the home run. Tyler Glasnow has the demon on the 7.5 strikeouts. Teoscar Hernandez has a 1.5 on hits, runs, RBIs. So every day the Dodgers play, you can pick more or less on each of those guys and see if you can win some money. So go check out PrizePicks today and start making those picks, and you can get 100 times, up to 100 times your money. And they even offer injury insurance if you're betting on these other sports and the basketball games if guys come out early in the game. So there's ways for you to get into it. But download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB in all lower cases for a first deposit match up to $100 when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, if you're not one, you can become one by listening or watching to these podcasts every single day or close to every day as you can. And, opening day is here. If you're listening before 1 p.m., if you're not listening before 1 p.m., opening day is already happened. But either way, the Dodgers have played 2 games, but it's still opening day. Every other team, well, not every other team, the East Coast has already had 2 rainouts for opening day. The Mets and the Phillies games both won't be played. Braves, Phillies, and I forget who the Mets are playing, but those games won't be going on. But, you guys know my day job is in baseball, working for a baseball brand, BR Walkoff. And, we work with MLB sometimes, and MLB has an emphasis on opening day. And what does opening day mean to you? And everyone's going to have a different answer. And, obviously, Jeff will have his own answer. But for me, it's kind of changed over the years because before, opening day meant hope. And as a Dodger fan growing up in the late, when I finally started realizing what was going on and tracking everything, late 90s, early 2000s, and the Dodgers weren't that good. They had good players, they had fun players, but they weren't good. They only made the postseason, I think, twice in the 90s. They made it one time in the early 2000s, and we remember that Lima time game so much, obviously because Jose Lima was fun and, the Dodgers won a game in the playoffs, but also because that was their first win in the playoffs since 1988. And, that's a long time to wait. And, opening day used to mean hope. Every team in theory has a chance at being good on opening day. There's some teams that are projected to be bad. There's some teams that are projected to be good. And, not all those projections will be right, but when it's opening day, you have that hope. And kind of as the Dodgers have gone along, and as we've talked, I talked about the best time to be a Dodger fan, and you can get a little spoiled, you can get a little jaded with some of these, and then opening day kind of becomes okay. I'm that Michael Scott meme. I'm ready to get hurt again, and it's still exciting, but just exciting in a different sense. And you maybe get a little bit spoiled in that. Okay, opening day is here, let's just get to October. Like, I know the Dodgers are going to make the playoffs. I know the Dodgers are going to be there, and let's just get to that part. But for now, I mean, this year especially, regardless of the off-field stuff that happened in the last week, opening day is just excitement, and getting to see a full season of Shohei Ohtani, getting to see another full season of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, and and Will Smith and Max Muncy and everybody else, and getting to see Tyler Glasnow and hoping he can stay healthy and compete for a Cy Young, getting to see Yoshinobu Yamamoto adjust to his first year in the big leagues and competing for Rookie of the Year and maybe Cy Young, seeing Bobby Miller take that progression in that next step and really solidify himself as one of the top pitchers in the league and someone that's ready to step up for the Dodgers, not just this season but in October and into the next few seasons. Hoping Clayton Kershaw gets healthy and comes back and we're able to see him pitch in the second half of the season, able to see him get his strikeout milestone and hopefully able to see him get another World Series ring. And that excitement is all there, the hope is still there, but it's one of those days where it's also, I think, to me, what's different for opening day as baseball fans, Dodger fans obviously, but as a baseball fan too, is that baseball's fallen off as the most popular sport in America, and maybe even down to three, depending how some people feel about basketball. But when you're a baseball fan, you understand other baseball fans, and when opening day is here, like you feel part of a community. Like, oh man, opening day. Like, even though you're an Angels fan or a Giants fan, or maybe not Giants fans, but even though you're a fan of another team, we're both fans of baseball, and we can appreciate what it is to have opening day and what it means. And that's just such a beautiful thing. And I think that's why opening days is so fun. And I remember growing up, like we went to, about when I was a kid, went to 5 or 6 straight opening days for a while. My dad would take us, and got to miss school and go to the Dodger game and everything else, and it was fun. And then there was a while where opening day, I started having to pay for opening day, so it wasn't I wouldn't really go to opening day, but I would watch it at home or watch it at a family's house. And if you know me, if it's a meaningful Dodger game opening day or playoffs, I'm going to be watching at home or at the stadium or at a family member's house. I don't really like to watch in public. And that's kind of what opening day was, going to my uncle's house or going to, watching at my parents' house or whatever it was. But you feel that, that excitement and you're with other Dodger fans and you're ready to see, what's going to bring. And then for Dodgers, they've been successful on opening day for the most part the last few years. And, you think of the opening day moments and you think of, all those runs scored against the Padres a few years ago in 2019. You think, or not against the Padres, or maybe it was against the Padres. I don't know. I remember all the runs scored. Maybe not all the details. You remember Kershaw, going complete game and hitting the home run to give them the lead late in the game. You remember that, and now the last few years I've been able, luckily enough, been able to go back and start that opening day tradition of going every year. And yeah, it's just for someone who loves baseball or who loves the Dodgers. It's a special day, and not everyone's going to treat it that way if they're not into baseball that much, or if they're, even maybe a casual fan might not, be that much into it. But if you're, truly a big baseball fan in general, Dodger fan, some people are only fan of the Dodgers, and maybe don't watch baseball beyond that. Some people are baseball fans that are also Dodger fans, and will watch baseball at all times. And that's kind of where obviously that's where I say, I'm a Dodger fan, but I'm a baseball fan, and opening day is one of our holidays, and I'm ready to experience it and go through it, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a kickoff, a fun year, and you start thinking about what can happen this season and what can happen in October, and you start thinking about, like, man, maybe next year's opening day, like, I'm going to be seeing the Dodgers get the rings, like we saw them doing, or at least I got to see them do in 2021, and it's fun to think about that type of stuff. So yeah, opening day. I'd love to hear what opening day means to you. If you're, watching on YouTube, go ahead and leave it in the comments, or if you're listening on the podcast, you can go to YouTube or leave it in the comments. You can go to social media and leave it to us, on Twitter. And yeah, that's all we're gonna have for today's episode. Opening day is here. Everyone enjoy. Let's hope that we get, Betts and Otani and Freeman to start off that first inning with some runs and get us going. Tyler Glasnow to dominate on his run to Cy Young, and we get to see a Dodger win and put away those Midwestern farmers that Miles Michaelis called the St. Louis Cardinals. So thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Remember to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Remember that we have 224/7 streaming channels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, this season there will be the Locked On Dodgers postcast with which will be on the Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles streaming after the game live. It'll be in our audio feed, the Locked On Dodger audio feed. So remember, there's some days you might get 2 episodes when you wake up. One's the postcast that talks about that specific game, and then you have our podcast, which will talk about the game and also talk about other things that may happen or what that game means beyond that day. So don't forget that. Remember, you can become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. If you were an insider and you were already subscribed, Jeff first put out the note that Will Smith was discussing an extension with the Dodgers, and then not too long after, Jeff sent another text that the deal was done. So, if you're someone that's at work during the day, we got you covered to bring you the breaking news straight to your phone. You don't have to worry about it. And if you want our reaction thoughts, you can always, text back and forth English is hard today. Back and forth with us, and you can, get any answers that you may want. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or leave us a text message. Switch those. Leave us a voicemail. Send us a text message at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. To your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.